Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully it won't wig out again. I don't know why it does that. So going back to the earlier table, what I'm saying is that in the end, what you care about when you're looking at your city is cost burden in the city in general. And when SCAG does this RHNA, that's kind of what they're also concerned with. They're concerned with comparing the units that are available in your city, what they rent for, and the income levels in your city. Right? So in West Covina, what we find is that 45% of renter households seem to be paying 30% or less. That means 55% are paying 30% or more, right? Because 100 minus 45 is 55. So it would seem that my first analysis of West Covina was median rent is 1,700, multiply by 12, 20,400. Divide that by 0.3, you get 68,000. Compare 68,000 to 83,000. You're like, oh, West Covina has a median income of 83,000. The median rent is 1,700, right? They seem to be doing okay, right? 83 is more than 68. But then you dig a little deeper, and what you find is that 55% of renter households are actually cost burden, right? So there's different levels of analysis you have to do with the data that is available to you to really get a sense of what's going on. And when we talk about something like the regional housing needs assessment, what we're really talking about is housing for those who are at the middle to lower income ranges. Because people who are making 85,000, 90,000, 75,000, 100,000 a year, usually they're okay. They have housing available to them if they want to live in West Covina. They can afford to pay the rent. They can afford to even buy. It's people who are making 50,000, 45,000, households that are making 50,000, 45,000. That's who we design the affordable housing policies for. That's the question that we ask is how many units in West Covina are renting for a price that is affordable to a household making 50,000 a year, a household making 40,000 a year. That is what the RHNA does, Regional Housing Needs Assessment. How does it do that? It basically goes through the housing available in West Covina. It looks at the rent for each of these housing or rented housing, and then it compares that to what people are making in West Covina and says, look, you got a lot of people and a lot of households in West Covina that are making 45,000 a year, right? So I'm going to just make up this data. This is not, I'm not taking this from anywhere. Let's say I go to a city and I find out that something like 20% of households make 40,000 per year in this city, right? 20% of households. Okay, so the first thing I do is, okay, 40,000 times 30% is equal to 12,000. Divide that by 12 is equal to 1,000 per month. Okay. I also know that a household that's making 40,000 per year is not going to be able to afford to buy a house. They'll most likely be renting. So then I go and look at my housing in my city and see how many units for 1,000 per month are available. Right? Are available. Okay, so let's say 20% of households in my city represents 400 households. Okay, 400. So that means 400 households should have 400 units approximately for 1,000 a month or less, right? But I go to my city and I notice that, oh, there are only 200 units for 1,000 per month. You see how there's a discrepancy now, right? Between, I have 400 households that require about $1,000 a month in rent, but there's only 200 units available, right? So this is the basic analysis. It's a bit more than that, but this is basically what is done when you're doing a regional housing needs assessment. You're comparing income in an area to household availability. Okay. And what we find is that even when cities build new apartments, they tend to be more expensive. So like, let's say this hypothetical city that I'm talking about, where you have 400 households that require units at $1,000 a month, the city goes and builds, incentivizes, or the city goes and works with a developer who builds new apartment buildings, right? In many cases, the developer may end up building apartment units that rent for $1,500 a month. The city goes, look, we just built new apartment units. We're trying to fill in the gap. But what you really know is that, yeah, you're right, you're filling in, but $1,500 a month is affordable to what? You divide 1,500 by 0.3, right? Divide 1,500 by 0.3, what do you get? Divided by 0.3, you get 5,000. 5,000 times 12 is 60,000. You're really happy about the fact that they build more apartments, except what you realize is that these apartments really are for households that are making $60,000 a year or more. Except the greatest need is for households that are making $40,000 a year or less. This scenario that I just described to you happens all the time. Okay. Now, the city is a dynamic entity, right? People are moving in, moving out all the time. So anytime you look at census data, rent data, and there's lots of different ways to get rent data, right? You can basically call up every large apartment unit in your city and ask them, what are you renting your 2-bedroom? You can do that. If you have a city of, let's say 40,000, it's actually not that hard. It would take maybe a few days to collect that data. That means you get real-time data, like today, right? Because what do we know about rents? Rents change all the time, depending on where you are, right? Census data, there's a lag. And the lag is sometimes 1 or 2 years. Because census collected all this data when it collected last year, 2020. That data is not even on the census webpage yet, is it? It's not. You're looking at 2019 data, which was really collected in 2018. Have things changed a lot in the last 3 years? God, the world has changed the last 3 years, right? Exactly. So there's data lag for sure, right? So if you're really doing this analysis in real time, you would have to actually make some calls. But you can get a pretty good sense. Do you have to call every apartment unit? No, you don't. You just got to call some of the big ones. Call 2 or 3 of the big ones. You'll have a pretty good sense of what a 2-bedroom goes for, what a 1-bedroom goes for, right off the bat. Right? If you're a smart planner, you're a smart analyst, you can do these kinds of calculations, I would say within 1 hour. Call 2 or 3 apartment units, call the managers. Hey, what did your 2-bedroom go for? Write it down. 3-bedroom go for? Write it down. Go to the census page. How many units? How many 2-bedrooms? How many 3-bedrooms? You can get these breakdowns. Right? You can estimate how many apartment units you actually have in your city. Once you have some rough figures, oh, today the average 2-bedroom is renting for $1,500. The average 3-bedroom is renting for $1,700, right? Then you go back and you say, oh, we have this many 3-bedrooms. Because you have the number of 3-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms from previous data sets. Prices change month to month. Number of units are not added month to month. That takes a year, 2 years, right? Because building takes a while. So you can get price data very quickly. And then you have a real sense. Like today, on average, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath is going for $1,800. 3 years ago, it was going for $1,500. So then you go, oh, 1,800 divided by 0.3 times 12. That means somebody renting that 1,800 two-bedroom should be making 72,000 a year. Right? And then you go and look at your census data from 1 year ago, 2 years ago. And you're like, on average, we had something like 35% of households that were making 72,000 or more. Okay, that was 3 years old. Incomes have gone up, right? There's been inflation. So you make some guesses. You say maybe today, maybe 40, 45%, maybe closer to 50%. But what about the other 50% that is not making 75,000 or more? You triangulate. Nobody's gonna like say, oh my gosh, you messed up. You were not, you didn't get it down to the exact perfect number. That's the point, is not to get it the perfect number. The point as a planner is to understand trends, right? To understand trends. And that's what I'm hoping that when you are searching for issues and problems and you're analyzing your issues and problems in your city, you're using your quantitative data, your numbers, using what you see and feel, and you using what you hear when you talk to people. You put it all together to say that the numbers are showing this, what somebody else is telling me is saying this, what I'm seeing is telling me this. I put it all together to give you my analysis of what some of the big issues are, right? It's a judgment call, but it's a judgment call, not just like you just didn't close your eyes and pick something out of thin air. You based it on some real data, qualitative and quantitative. Right, and that's and that is the essence of what good planning is understanding how things are changing using a variety of data sources, primary and secondary. Census is secondary. Primary is your interviews, is your eyes and ears on the road, right? Okay. What is the take home from this last 50 minutes or so? That you should be able to compare three pieces of data: household income, that 0.3 magic threshold, right? Okay, and rent or housing cost. I've only used rent, by the way, right now. Is there another type of housing cost? You bet there is, right? The census, I didn't explicitly talk about it, but in the table, you also noticed what? Gross owner-occupied cost, right? Gross housing costs with the mortgage, right? That was also there. I scrolled over it really quickly, but it's there. All right, let me see if I can find it again just to make sure that you see it. Here it is, see? Housing units with the mortgage. What's the median mortgage? 2328, right? What's the median rent? 1747. There's a $600 difference, 2328 versus 1747, right? There's like a $600 difference between homes that are owner occupied and pay a mortgage in West Covina and homes that are renter occupied. There's like a $600 difference in monthly costs. That difference is probably a lot higher now. Rents have gone up, but home prices have gone up a heck of a lot as well. Jonah's asking, can I post the Excel? Yes, absolutely. I'll post both the Paint and the Excel. But better yet, Jonah, I'll post this magical thing called recording of Zoom, which it's all on there. You can recreate it from scratch as well. Sounds magical. I mean, I don't know how Zoom works or computers work. Do you? Besides pushing the buttons, do you know how it actually works? I don't. Isn't it magic? I mean, think about what, could you explain this to your younger brother or sister? What's going on at the level of the circuit board? And we are the educated ones, aren't we? Scary. I couldn't. Yeah, they probably do know more than I do. That's true. I think they're better at pushing the buttons and moving things around on the screen because they know how to interact with programs. They are no better equipped to tell you how it works. Like when somebody goes and programs an app or something on their phone, they're not really writing base code. They're writing the software on which the app was developed. It's a much higher level language, right? It's like my little one, when she programs, and she's 8.5 or 9 years old, when she does her little coding thing, it's literally like moving objects in space. Oh, move this from here and this. It's more logic oriented. It has nothing to do with actually understanding what's going on at a base level. Is that a useful skill? It is, because that's how, a lot of like Python and higher level languages are written, right? But that doesn't really tell you what's going on at the lower level. Do you need to know? You don't need to know. Nobody needs to know. Like a handful of people know, and they make the computers, and it's all good until civilization ends and we're back at don't worry about it. Okay. I do find it fascinating to talk about this because sometimes it's useful to remind yourself of what you know and don't know when you're feeling really cocky about yourself. Okay. There's a lot we don't know. But as planners, your job is not to know the methodology in detail. Your job is to basically understand how to use the data to help people who make decisions. Some cases it'll be you. Like the city council is going to ask you, Melinda, what should we build? Literally, it's a simple question. And what they'll want back is an answer like, I think we should encourage developers to build more 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, about 200 of them. That's the kind of answer they want. They don't really even want what I just did right here. Because you start doing this in a city council meeting, well, we have this many units and you multiply this and this is what it results in, and there's a deficiency in RHNA, and this is what the city council member is going to be doing. Right? What many of you are doing right now in your black screens when I'm talking about this. But files, I believe, right? Yusuf, you can't ask questions like that. Where are the Zoom recordings located? That makes me feel like you have not been here. They're on Canvas, man. Click. They're literally on Canvas. You go there, you click, it'll take you to YouTube. You don't even have to download them. You just go to YouTube.
No, I'm right here. I was trying to find one a couple of days ago and I couldn't find it.
It's on Canvas. They're in each module. Here, I'll show you where they are. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, they're under each module, under each week.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty current too. I've uploaded all of them. Oh no, not the last one. Sorry. So this one and last one I owe you still. But here, let me show you where they are, Yusuf and others. My theory is if Yusuf has a question, there's at least 10 other students who have the same question who have not been bold like Yusuf to ask me the question. So here it is. You see this lecture recording right there, lecture recording. If you click on these, you scroll up lecture recording, it'll take you to the actual YouTube site. So like let's say you click on this one, for example. There it is. You see that?
Yeah, the one I was looking for was the last one. The one from last time.
Yeah, I'll put it up today. Sorry about that.
Thanks, though.
Yeah, because I put it on YouTube because if you start downloading these files, they're like 200. They're like 200. What do you call it? 200 megabytes, 300 megabytes. They're massive. I mean, you'll spend a long time in your computer downloading them. YouTube is much easier. You can scroll back and it also has it's much easier to navigate. So. Okay, so that is your housing cost burden in a nutshell, basically, right? So as a planner, you should be able to say, basically, sir, I think we need 200 more units that are we need 200 units that are 2-bedroom, 2-baths. We need 100 units that are 3 bedrooms. And we need 50 units that are 1-bedroom. How do you know that? Census also collects data on household size. Another level of analysis, doesn't it? Right? But I don't want to confuse you even more right now. But basically, right? Like, who needs a 2-bedroom? A family of 4 or 5 can inhabit a 2-bedroom without being crowded, right? A family of 6 or 7 needs about a 3-bedroom. right? So 3-bedroom units are kind of they're rare. They're a little bit less frequently built because they're not really needed. Even in areas where you have large families, you're going to have maybe mom and dad and 2 or 3 kids, maybe 4 or 5 at the most, right? Sometimes a grandma or grandpa living with. In that case, then you get a bigger household. But really, you know, most nuclear families are 4 or 5, not much bigger than that. Okay, let me share with you now some affordable housing policies that enable the building of affordable housing. So where am I going? I need to go to your Canvas. So give me 1 second here. I need to go to your lecture here. Okay, so here, this is the actual housing lecture, the PowerPoint. Okay, Taylor, you see the housing cost burden slide?
Yes.
Okay, so all this stuff that I've been rambling on about for the last hour, it's kind of outlined here. If you want to scroll through like slide 24 onwards, same calculation. You see this right here? It's there. And there's a lot of charts here on affordability historically. You can look at that. What I really want to get into here is some of this data is pretty interesting. It's just, for example, real entry-level wages of high school graduates by gender. Look what's happened here. This is trending down, right? So in 1979, a high school graduate was making $15.64. The key word here is real. Real. 1564. Today they're making 1168. Actually, this is a quick point worth making. And now you're thinking to yourself, nobody was making 15 bucks an hour in 1970s. You're right, they weren't. They were making something like $6, $7, $8, right? But when you adjust that for inflation in today's dollars, it's like $15. You got to compare apples to apples, right? Okay, so yeah, Taylor, the project is not due today.
Not for your class, but for the other class it is.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry about that. So you have, let's see, let's take $5, 1970s, that is 30, 50 years. So if you assume 2% inflation from 1970, $5 in 1970, $5 an hour in 1970 would be something like $13.50 today. So somebody making $5 an hour, if inflation was 2%, it would be $13.50. If inflation was 2.5% on average, $5 in 1970 would be $17.20 today. Okay, $17.20 today. So that's what this chart is showing you. When you look at real entry-level wages of high school graduates, when you compare 70s to 2011, it's actually gone down over time. Okay, so here are, 1 second here. here is affordable housing policies. There's two types. There's supply side and there is demand side. Now, I mentioned this in the last lecture, actually, also. Supply side policies incentivize the building of more housing. Demand side policies provide renters with subsidies. Okay, so how does this work? I'll answer your question in a second, Taylor, about inflation rates. So how does this work? Let me open up Paint again for a second here. Okay. This program used to be called Section 8 before. It's just called housing vouchers. How does the program basically work? It's like this. Let's say you are eligible for the program and you apply, they accept you, and they're willing to give you a subsidy, okay? Subsidy. A lot of ifs here. Okay, but let's say you do all that. You qualify and you're on the program, okay? What they'll basically do is say, hey, how much money are you making? And you go to them, you say, I make $3,500 per month. Or let's be $3,000 per month. Okay, that is $36,000 per year, right? Times 12 a year. So how much can this household afford? Well, it's 36,000 times 0.3, right? Equals 10,800. Divide that by 12, you get 900 per month. This is what they can afford. But they are renting a unit. They are renting a unit for 1,500 per month. So what is the difference between 1,500 minus 900? It is 600, right? The 600 is their subsidy. This is the difference that is made up by the program. Okay, this is basically how Section 8 works, the housing vouchers program works. You figure out what the household can afford, you figure out the rent for a appropriate unit. So like, let's say the household is 2 parents, 2 kids, and they find a unit, you know, that is renting for 1,500, that is 2 bedroom, 2 baths, or a house that's 3 bedroom, 2 baths, or 2 bedroom, 2 baths. The housing authority that is giving the subsidy decides that the unit is adequate, decent quality, the rent is market rate. They do all this before they approve the unit for you. They will actually send a representative to go through the unit and make sure it's up to code, it's market rate, rent, all of that. They decide all of that, and they're like, yeah, 1,500 is actually the right rent for this unit, and this unit is appropriate for your family size. And the rent is 1,500 bucks. You can only afford 900. They will cut you a check every month for $600. They won't cut you a check. They'll actually pay the landlord directly. That's basically how housing vouchers work. Housing vouchers. Housing vouchers are the biggest demand side policy. They provide renter homeowner subsidies. There's also a supply side policy. This is a tax credit. A tax credit. How does a tax credit work? Well, we won't get into that. But I give you some examples here. Slides 56, 58, and if you really want to understand tax credits, slide 59. But let me give you the simple version of this, okay? So the biggest demand side affordable housing policy is housing vouchers. The biggest supply side affordable housing policy is low-income housing tax credit. So how does a tax credit work? This is a bit tricky. Let's say you want to build, you're a developer, you're an affordable housing developer, and you want to build, you want to build 10 units of apartments, okay? Each unit will cost, to build, each unit will cost $250,000. You want to build 10 units, this is 2.5 million of building cost. Plus land cost. So let's say the land costs 500,000, your total cost, let's say, is 3 million, which is actually very expensive. So let's make this a little bit more reasonable. 1.5 million, and then the land costs 250,000. So total cost is 1,750,000. Okay. Now, as a developer, you don't really care about helping people and all that, right? Your bottom line is what? You want to make money, right? You want to build units and you want them to rent for a certain rate, so you have a pretty decent cash flow every month. But how do you actually get developers to build more apartment units that are actually renting for a lower rent per month? Because we just saw the biggest needs are for people who are at the lower income levels, right? But a developer wants to build our apartment units for higher income levels. That's a mismatch. So one of the ways we do this is through something called tax credits. And this is how tax credits work. A developer submits an application to the state and says, I want to build 10 units. And it's going to cost me 1.75 million. They win something called a 9% credit over 10 years, so which is equal to a 90% credit, tax credit over 10 years against that cost. So what's 90% of 1.75 million? Is roughly 1.6 million in credits. They win that. But credits are not cash. They are to be applied against the taxable liability of the developer. This is confusing, I get it. Right? Credits are not cash. They actually win tax credits, but not cash. What the developer then does, he takes the $1.6 million in credits, are sold on the private market. Who buys tax credits? People who make a lot of money. Okay, who make a lot of money. Why? A tax credit wipes out your tax liability. So let's say last year you're a big corporation. Let's say you're Amazon, and you made one million. Amazon made billions, but I'm just giving you an example. They made 1 million in profit. Okay. If Amazon had 1 million in tax credits, they would owe the government nothing. Okay, I want you to understand that. This is very important. Seem to have lost this again. You guys actually see me?
Yes.
If Amazon owed $1 million and they got $1 million in tax credits, the $1 million in credits wipes out their liability, 1-to-1. So anybody who has capital gains, profits, anything like that is very interested in tax credits because they reduce taxes. Okay, that's the kind of take-home point here. I'm kind of losing this again. Give me 1 second here. Back again. So tax credits are then used, are sold on the private market. People who make a lot of money buy the tax credits. So Amazon might buy this 1.6 million in credits and give the developer. Let's say this, Amazon's like today, the going rate for tax credits is 80 cents on the dollar. So basically the 1.6 million is multiplied by 0.8. And the developer gets something like 1.3 million in cash from Amazon. Okay, the developer now has 1.3 million in cash. Amazon has 1.6 million in credits. Then the developer takes this cash and goes to the city and says, look, I still need to make up some of this one because it's going to cost me 1.75 million. The city goes, you know what, we can give you $500,000 in land, or we can give you $300,000 in some other kind of, we have some money also in our affordable housing land trust fund, right? Developer basically pieces the deal together and is able to build the 10 units of affordable housing using tax credits. Okay, let me show you how you can actually look this up if you're interested in researching this more online. 1 second here. If you go to Google and type in TCAC, just hit enter. This is what I did, TCAC. It'll bring you to the first link here. It's called CTCAC, California State Treasurer. Click on that. It'll take you to this website right here. This is called the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. You see that, Guillermo, on your screen? Okay. This gives you actually a pretty comprehensive overview of the tax credit process. It is pretty complicated. What I gave you was literally like the first grade version of it. You see the applications here, 2021 second round 9%, right? You see that? Okay. You can click on fast facts. It tells you How many federal credits, how many state credits were awarded in 2020? 112 million in federal credits, 87 million in state credits. How many units were built in the state of California, or rather funded? They're not built yet. They're still in planning and building. 4,000 units were built or approved last year using tax credits, 4,000. How many of these were low income? 3,900. Almost all of them are low income. 4138, let's say each one houses 4 people. 4,000 units represents how many people? About 16,500 if you multiply that by 4, right? Is that a lot? No. Is that better than nothing? Yeah. But look at the figures. You're talking over 120 million in federal credits and 78 million in state credits. $200 million in credits were used to develop low-income housing for 16,000 people, roughly. Right? Maybe Jeff Bezos should stop going to space and spend the money on these things instead. So when you go to your lecture notes, let me go back to that again for a second. When you go back to your lecture notes on slide 48, slide 48 of your lecture notes, you will see a listing of some examples of affordable housing policy on slide number 48. Okay. What's the easiest way to look up affordable housing policies in your city? You literally just type in affordable housing policy. Yeah, well, let's just do this. So you see it's how straightforward it is. Affordable housing policy programs, West Covina. Okay, type that in. And I type this in on my web browser and look, affordable housing developments in City of West Covina comes right up. Housing City of West Covina, you can click on that. Affordable housing database, City of West Covina, right? These are all westcovina.org. Okay, so searching for this online is not complicated. Usually you're going to have city programs that are like this. They're going to be like, oh, our affordable housing policies includes $3,000, grant or subsidy for first-time home buyers for housing costs, closing costs. It's going to be something minor like that. If you have big cities like City of Irvine, they have an affordable housing trust fund. So it depends on the city you're looking at. But every city will have something. They'll have something sometimes very small. And if the city is really sophisticated, they're bigger, they have more money, they'll have like a special fund, usually called an affordable housing trust fund, land trust, something like that, that they'll use to help developers build affordable housing inside their city. Okay, so all I'm asking for you to do is just list some of these things very briefly, what they are. I'm not asking you to do any kind of deep analysis. I realize some of you have the things due today, so it's just you just list it. City of West Covina, City of Diamond Bar, City of Pomona, these are the policies, like one paragraph, that's it. You can pull it directly from their website. But more importantly, I want you to understand what we mean when we mean by affordable housing, though. And that's kind of the thrust of today's lecture. It's a pretty complicated, big, interesting arena. And there's lots of different ways to do this, because I just talked about affordable housing for renters. There's also affordable housing for homeowners. Okay, so I do go through my PowerPoints. I talk a little bit about the different policies if you want to. There's something called inclusionary housing as well. Inclusionary housing is when cities say, hey, Mr. Developer, Mrs. Developer, you're building 50 new owner-occupied homes that you're going to sell. 10 of those have to be affordable to middle to lower income residents. The city will sometimes tell developers to look, your zoning allows you to build 50, we'll let you build 55, but 10 of those have to be low income, for sale to low income. That's inclusionary housing. Okay, so developers like, oh man, I don't want to sell low income, it's cost me more to do that. The city's like, yes, but we're letting you build 5 more than you normally would. So they negotiate basically back and forth. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop there. I don't want to inundate you with even more stuff here, but this is just a general overview of what housing is. The housing landscape is very, it includes a lot of different things. You know, I covered mortgages as well in previous lectures. Hopefully that was useful. You know, at the very least, it'll enable you to calculate these things using Excel. Taylor had asked, inflation rates, what is a reputable source? So Taylor, if you just type in CPI on Google, Consumer Price Index, and follow that rabbit hole, it'll take you where you need to go. Guillermo asked, what regulations are there to qualify for Section 8? How does a person Section 8 own a brand new Camaro? Very good. So Section 8 usually has an income test and not an asset test. They don't care about what you own usually. I don't know the exact details because the housing authority, depending on where you are, can have different rules, but usually it's based on a certain set criteria. Income is the biggest part of that. How much money do you make? Show us your taxes, that kind of stuff. Because a Camaro can't be used to pay for rent. Right? People cheat though, right? I mean, I don't want to say that. Let's say you're in a business which is cash only. You get paid in cash. You don't report all that. Contractors are notorious for this, right? So they get paid a lot in cash. Let's say they made 80,000 last year. They only report 50. The other 30 has to go somewhere. Right, so they walk into the bank every other week, deposit 9,000, 8,000, then they have it in the bank, then they walk into a Camaro dealership, they buy a Camaro. They go to the Section 8 authority and they're like, I only made 50,000 last year, I need to live in the city, I got 4 kids. They're like, you're eligible. Does that answer your question, Guillermo? Kind of. I mean, I can show you many roads that lead to a Camaro and Section 8. Just remember this, for every program that tries to help people, there's going to be at least, I don't know what the number is, but if I had to really make a bet, I would say 20 to 40% who are messing with the system. Easily. Does that mean the whole program is bad? Heck no, because we're helping 50 to 60%. Taylor needs to make an announcement. Yeah, Taylor, you can make an announcement at the end. Kahikili, does every city provide Section 8? It's not, yes, short answer, yes. But Section 8 apartments are not provided by the city, Kahikili. They're provided by the private sector. So let's say you're a landlord, right? Let's say Guillermo is a landlord, right? Guillermo can decide, is my unit accept Section 8 or not? So Guillermo decides my unit accepts Section 8. Guillermo gets Professor Taiwari, who applies to Guillermo's apartment. And then Melinda. Melinda she says, I don't have Section 8. And I say I have Section 8. Now Guillermo has to decide, does he want to take me or Melinda? Guillermo has had positive experience with Section 8 in the past. He's like, I like getting checks directly from the city or the housing authority. Right? He goes, Melinda, I really like you. I also like Professor Taiwari. All else being equal, I'm going to rent to Taiwari because I'm okay with Section 8. That's kind of how it works. Or if he's not okay with Section 8, he won't tell you. He'll go, Taiwari, you were very competitive. Fortunately, Melinda made a better case based on her paperwork. What's her paperwork? Her income, her credit score. It has nothing to do with your Section 8. I think Melinda is a better renter. And I hate you. You didn't say that. Right. Professor has a Camaro too? No, I don't have a Camaro. I have a 2006 Honda Element. I'm not into cars. Yeah, Element's the best car ever. You can literally sleep in it. I don't drive very much, so it gets pretty crappy gas mileage, I'll be honest. But it's a 4-cylinder, but it still gets it's so old, it still gets maybe 18, 19 miles a gallon. Yeah, you can wash it with the hose, the interior, exactly. I carry all my bicycles, my gym, everything. It smells like a YMCA in there, you know. Sorry, no slight to YMCAs. YMCAs smell better than my car. I should be clear. Yeah, it's a very nice car. I highly recommend them. It is, if you are into outdoors things and you haul around a lot of stuff, excellent car. Let's see. Okay. How do they differentiate people who are in real estate industry? So Melinda, I don't understand your question.
So basically, what if they're buying a house that's more than their 30% of income, but that's their ways of living? So how does the census data catch that?
Wait, so they're buying houses that's more than 30% of their income?
Yes, but they're not there to live. They're just trying to resell for a higher price.
No, they don't capture that.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't capture. You would have to actually capture that. Those are house flippers and whatnot. So, you know, that transaction happens way too quickly for census data to capture. Sometimes it's they buy, they sell all within 2-3 months. Census data is they're really more interested in people who are kind of part of the community. Those people are not part of the community. They're just transitional owners. Yeah, but this is a problem with any kind of data set. I mean, the most accurate home ownership data set is the National Association of Realtors. It's most real time. Okay, but they only have data sets that are, so NAR has, Association of Realtors has data that is based on their sales. So it's very accurate in that way, but they don't have data on existing home, people who live there for 30 years, because they're not selling. It wouldn't show up on their database. So if you're if you're a housing researcher at a university, that's what you research, you would have to mix and match basically. That's why it could take a very long time, because you're downloading census data, you're going to NAR, you're going to other data sets, you're kind of putting it together to answer the question you're interested in. We just teach you the census because I think that's complicated enough. Forget about the other stuff, right? Okay, so if there are no other questions, non-element questions, then I will. Is it turbo? No, it's not turbocharged. It's not. It is all-wheel drive, which is the wrong choice. I bought the Element because it was an orange car. I didn't know anything about Elements. I just like the color orange. Just got lucky. Yeah. It's orange. It's orange Element. That's right. Okay, so orange is my favorite color. That's why. Enough about that. I will see you guys in lab. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, wait, APSA meeting.
Oh, sorry. Taylor.
Sorry, guys.
Taylor has an announcement.
There's an APSA meeting on Thursday.